Let me know once you're able to view it.
Yeah, Roshan.
Okay. So I'm in component library. This is the developer guide documentation and component library for LWC. So this is the one-stop shop for most of our learning process with LWC. It has more or less all the information. So last time when we were discussing working with Salesforce data. So where we talked about how we can use Apex to Apex and LWC to call Salesforce. How we can use Lightning data services, wherein we had like Lightning record edit form, record view form, all those things. How these adapters help us in making sure we are not making Apex but using these Lightning data services to perform DML operations in LWC, right? So today what we will talk about is how we in Aura components we had application events, we had component events, right? So here there are no such segregation as such. So how we create events in LWC and how we handle it. So let's talk about that. So in LWC to create and fire a event, we use something called custom event. So now if you see, this is a LWC component which is like a click next and previous component, okay, a paginator component, wherein when a user clicks next or when a user clicks previous, the counter increases. Okay. So what they are doing here, on click, they are calling previous handler, okay, which is nothing but a JavaScript method, previous handler. Similarly, there is one more method called next handler, right? So whenever I click on that, what I am doing is I am creating a new event. So how we create a event, we don't have to go Lightning event, this is application, this is component, nothing like that. To create an event, you just say new custom event and provide the name of the event. There are other parameters as well, but name is something that is necessary. So if you see custom event, the custom event constructor has one required parameter that indicates the event type. Event type can be any name. So you can give Prashant, you can give Narsimha, Nalini, anything, but it should be again, naming convention should be user friendly. It should be readable, right? And again, one important thing: don't give on uh, a prefix to your event name, because when you are going to call a event, you need to put on there. But when you give on message, let's say your event name, while calling a event, you have to give on, like on change, on click. We have these events, right, by default. So the event name is click, and when we want to handle it, we say on click, right? So here we have given event name as previous and next. Okay. So now we will use, so this will also, so this component, it would be, it's a paginator component, right? So it's a common component which can be used in a parent component. So this is the parent component, okay, event single. Here we are calling the paginator component. How we are calling it? C hyphen paginator. Why C hyphen paginator? The component name is paginator. So like in Aura components, what we were doing, C colon component name. So here we give C colon component name. Sorry, C hyphen component name in LWC. So we say C paginator, and then these are the event handlers, right? On previous. So if you remember in this child component, when while creating the events, we said names as previous and next. While handling it, we say on previous on next. It's like on click event, right? So on previous, on next, you call these handlers. So these handlers are defined again in the parent component, previous handler. So what it is saying, this dot page -1, this dot page +1. So basically we are using these events, and uh, based on those events we are so whenever this event is fired, this method will be fired. So I'll just quickly try to copy paste this and will show you how it behaves. Let me share. Close all. So already I'm in my VS Code. New, create web component, say generator, and give any name. Okay, and the JavaScript. My child component is available. So basically here what I am saying is whenever I click on these buttons, previous event fire is created and is dispatched. Dispatched is like event.fire. When event.fire happens, how we handle it in the parent. Okay, so let me create the parent component. Okay, so here, okay, now what I will do is I'll right click. So I'll again talk about this, how we can test it before deploying. So last time what we were doing, we were creating the web components, we were deploying it and testing it in UI inside Salesforce directly, right? So as part of latest release, Salesforce has provided a preview component locally. I will tell you how we set it up. So now I want to test it. So I'll just preview the component locally and see if it works as expected. And copy the URL, and I will, okay, here is a file site. No, let me just, okay, it has parent, child, both, right? 1 second. I will first deploy it, then we will test it locally. So let me just say is exposed as true, then targets This is basically to say where it will be used. We'll say we'll use it in home page, and let's say record page itself. Okay. Now what we'll do is we will deploy these components. So we have this parent as well as a child, right? Let me just minimize these. So I have a paginator and I have event parent. These two I need to deploy. So what I will do, again I'll talk about this. I'll talk about when we do the deployment session. So basically there is a package XML that has the components that I want to deploy. Here I want to deploy the lightning components. So I just can keep, so this is the type that helps me deploy the lightning components, lightning component bundles. So I'll just say deploy source and manifest. Already I have my default aux set to my parent aux. Okay, there's some error. Unexpected element target. Okay, I think some, oh, sorry. Okay, it ran. Now let's see if in my local environment, let me copy this over to Chrome. I will share it. Let me log in first. Okay. Uh, I'll share the other screen. So for local development, I'm still seeing some issues. I'll just check it again. Okay. Let me just see here. I will open leads and try and add the component here. Okay, here it is there. So if you see here, when I click on next, the page increments. When I click on previous, the page like page number reduces, right? So this is the parent component. These buttons which we saw are in the child component. So when I click on next, it invokes, it changes property in the parent component. How does this happen? So basically, if I go back to the code, so if you see here, in child component, I have the buttons defined, and buttons, when I click on the buttons, I call child's JavaScript methods, okay, which is previous handler and next handler. So in previous handler and next handler, what I'm doing, I'm creating an event and I'm firing it. So when I click on the child button, I'm firing an event, okay, which is previous or next. Now, so if you remember previously also, when we fire a event, it needs to be handled. So in Aura components, we used to write a Aura handler to handle a event, right? In LWC, again, we can write handlers. We don't say handlers, but we say listeners to listen to an event. Even we can do it on the HTML level. So on HTML level, to listen a event that was fired, we use its attribute itself. So whatever is the event name, we say on event name. So on previous, on next. So when child button was clicked, previous event was fired or next event was fired. So with this being defined, what happens is it knows now, okay, previous event happened. So when previous event happens, what you do, you call previous handler. Previous handler in parent, what it does, previous handler reduces page number, next handler increases page number. So that's how your event can be fired and handled. How we fire an event, we use dispatch event. How we create event, we use new custom event. How we handle it, we use it on the HTML level. Any questions? Yeah.
No, Prashant.
Okay. Next we will talk about what is the other way we can um, handle the event. So this we talked about. Now pass data again, it would be same, wherein we can say, okay, uh, you want to, while creating event, we just provided the name, right, selected. Now if I want to pass data, again I can add some parameters. Okay, so this is one example where I'm passing a event. Now let's say I have this event called contact list item. Okay, so individual items are there, and so this is the child item which will be there, wherein I see I have contact of my picture and on contact name. Okay, and on click of a picture in the child item, they call select handler. So what it select handler does, it here in select handler we create an event called selected, and then we pass data this dot contact id, and then we fire the event. Okay, so now parent will handle the event. Let's see what the parent does. See, this is the parent event with data, this is the child that fires, right? Now in event, again we are handling it on selected, contact selected, right? So on selected means obviously this is what handles the event now. So in contact selected, so if you remember, in Aura components we used to use event.get source, right? Event.target, get target. So these were the things which we were using. So now here we say event dot detail, because that is what we had set. See, detail is the attribute, value is this dot contact id. So when I say event dot detail, it will give me the information what was sent, right? So we were saying, first we were defining a event, then we were saying get value, those things we were doing. Get source dot get v dot attribute name we were doing. Here we can directly say whatever is the event that triggered it, get its detail. Now we get the detail. Then we can set, so once we have the value, we can set it to any attribute in the parent. So here we have a selected contact to which we were setting. So this is the contact id and set it. Okay, any questions on this? I mean, how we pass values?
No pressure.
Okay, good. Next, as I said, this is one way to handle on the HTML level itself. Again, we have another way to handle, which would be on the JavaScript level itself. Now, this is one way. So this we already discussed, that a child event called notification. While calling the child in the parent, you say what method to be called when this notification event fires. Now there is one more way. Rather than defining directly on the HTML level, let's say here you just say see child and you don't define how to handle a notification event from the child. But there is one more way to listen to it. So what we can say on the constructor. So in Aura components we had init. Here we have constructor and we have one more. It's called, I think, callback or something. But constructor also you can use. So on load, this constructor method, JavaScript method for the parent fires. Here we say super, and then we say this dot template add event listener. Okay, so add event listener is also one way you can listen to an event. So which event you want to listen to? I want to listen to notification event. So when this event fires, what do you want to do? I want to call handle notification method, and then you define handle notification, and here in the inline function you mention what you want to do. Okay, additionally again you can inline here. So here, rather than calling a method separately, inline also you can define your logic, which is what they have done here. Event equivalent, and then you provide your JavaScript logic here. So here we're just doing a log. Okay, so add event listener is again one more way we can um, handle a event. Okay.
No pressure.
Okay, fine. Guys, give me 1 minute. Okay, so any questions related to events as of now? Yes.
Operation.
Okay, good. Again, like it may seem pretty straightforward, but it needs some practice. So obviously, I want you guys to do some trialets on this, and also follow this developer guide. This also defines what are the best practices you should follow for events and all those things. So all those things are available here. Okay. Next, we will talk about how what is the other way. So we talked about events helps us communicate between two components, so it's like one LWC and another LWC, parent child, how they interact with events. So there is one more way also, like in um, Aura components, we had Aura method with which we were able to communicate. Similarly, here also we can call child methods from parent. How we do that? I will just share my screen and I will show that. So I have one component called account search. So last session we went through a component for account search, right? Now what I have done, I have segregated the search into two parts. I mean the component into two parts. One where I will provide the search value and I will click on a button, and there is one more component called account search child where I will iterate through the component and show the list of records. Okay, so in parent I call the child component, and just see how I'm calling c hyphen account hyphen search hyphen child. Why there are two additional hyphens? If you see, while creating the component I said account, then capital S search, capital C child. So when these capital letters signify that these are additional words. Okay, so to call the component with these caps you should use hyphen. Wherever caps are there you should replace that with hyphen, and small s, capital C replace hyphen with small c. That's how you call a child component. Okay, now in my child component I have a method called prepare account data. There I make the call to apex and show the list. To this I am passing a value search key which I will enter in my parent component. So how is that my child component method is being called with parent component parameter? So if I go to my parent component JavaScript, here what I am doing is I am, see, this dot query selector, then I am selecting the child component value, C account search child, and then I say prepare accounts data and pass the value. Okay, so by this I am able to send the value to the child component method. So this is the child component method, prepare accounts data. It's like component dot find your aura find your child component, and then call its method. Okay, so if I just try it out locally and I search, not sure something is not right with this local environment, local server. Let me just type in Chrome. I have to see. It's still in beta version, so again I have to see. But I felt this is a good way to test. But all right, I have to check again what is happening with this. Okay, let me just go to Salesforce. I have created a tab for this component, account search. Search here. It's coming here. So I have this key, this button. These are in parent. This table is in child. So I'm calling I'm sending this ACC value. On click of the button, I send this value to child components method, in which I do a database call and display it. Okay, so this is also one way how we communicate between two components. Okay, clear, right?
Yeah, Prashant.
Okay. Next, let's say I have a Aura component, I have a LWC component, and I want to use a LWC component inside my Aura component. Okay. So if I want to do that, how will I do that? Let me come here. See here again we have a section Aura coexistence. So basically, if you see here, this is a Aura component wherein I say Aura hello world. Okay, there is a lightning card. Then I have a child component which is a LWC component. Okay, so to that, again it's straightforward. Whatever you have, like let's say I have a name attribute defined for the child component, like we were calling our Aura components. In a similar way, we will call our LWC components as well from um, uh, Aura component. Okay, so this is how you can call. Even events we can manage. So let's say you have certain components, like you want to fire an event in LWC and you want to capture it in Aura components. That is also possible. So how can we do that? It will be again similar, the way we were managing between a LWC event parent child. It will be similar. So basically what you need to do is you create your custom event, right? So you create your custom event, like here, let's say I have a LWC component where on chain, I mean, whenever I check a checkbox, this is a child component, okay, which has two checkboxes. Whenever I check a checkbox, what I do is I identify which checkbox was checked and I set the value. So I create an event called filter change. To that, for that detail I say, okay, these are the filters which which filters is the array that stores the information of which element was checked. Okay, and I create an event and I fire the event. So when you fire the event, in child you have on filter change, right? On filter change, so filter change is the event. So whenever this event is fired, handle filter change will be called. So handle filter change will be available in your Aura components controller.js. There you because we are saying event.get. If it was LWC, we will say event.details, but here we use event.get param, right? So because we are using event.get params, so we will get the parameters of the filters attribute, right? Because filters attribute is what is being set here, right? So filters is the attribute in LWC that is being set. So we will say event.get params, get param filters, and we can use it. So more or less it's similar, exactly same we can say. The way we communicate between LWC and uh, between two LWC component, the way we communicate, and the way we communicate between Aura and LWC. I mean, I didn't find any major difference as such, apart from the way we handle the event in Aura, right? So the flow still remains the same. So yeah, this is how we do the communication between Aura and LWC. Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
So one query, like these two are like different in the frameworks, right?
right. They are different frameworks, but finally both are Lightning. So
Okay.
if you see here, this is also a Lightning UI. Although it's a LWC component, again it's Lightning web component. So both can coexist.
Okay.
That's the point here. I mean, see, finally when it comes to, I mean, in your page, it's all dynamic HTML. So existence should be there. I mean, still you can communicate and still you can work it out between both the stuff, because UI wise nothing changes, just the framework changes. So there can be scenarios where I already have my Aura components. I don't want to spend money and time on migrating those. But again, I want to leverage the new features of LWC. How can I do that? I create the LWCs from now on and use those with Aura components, and slowly start building all the new components in LWC, so that I can leverage the latest and greatest features of the web components that are coming up, right? Because it's new. So that is something which I should look for.
Okay. So one query, this Aura components, like how we are using it in the code, you are just accessing it using this commands, but generally if we deploy it somewhere, like how they will means like physically exist in the servers.
Aura components.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Aura components are LWC, you're saying.
No, in the LWC, if we are using Aura a component.
LWC, I'm not sure I can call Aura components. I have to check that. But whatever I have seen LWC being called from Aura component. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
not Aura from LWC.
Okay.
So that is something which I have to confirm. I'll check that if that's possible.
Okay.
Whatever I've read, it's like a one-way uh, existence. I mean, from Aura you can call LWC, but in LWC, if I want to call Aura, I have to see how is that possible.
Okay.
Okay, but from
Okay.
LWC, from Aura LWC, you're clear, right? It's pretty straightforward. Like you're calling, it's as if you're calling Aura component itself, right? So
Yeah.
no change there. So this is a Aura component in which I'm calling a web component, right? So that
Yes.
we are clear, correct?
Yeah.
And all these components, web components, Aura components, everything you can once you have deployed, you can see it here under Lightning components. So finally, be it Aura component, see, both are two separate frameworks, but finally they are Lightning components only. So if you come to Lightning components, you can see all the components here. See, type is Aura, type is LWC, but everything will be available.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think this is what you were looking for, right? Where are these being
Yes.
stored?
Yes. Yes.
So here everything will be there. So your Apex classes you can see in Apex class. Here all your Apex classes are there. Triggers, again, they're object specific, as well as you can see, I think this we already discussed. Apex triggers, you can see, right? So yeah, everything will be there finally there in Salesforce only. Just
Oh,
that LWC we can't get directly using Dev Console. We use Visual Studio Code to do the to create it.
oh,
Next, I wanted to talk about this local development server, but somewhere it's not working as expected. But let's see. At least I can show you how. It's kind of a preview, which you see now here. If you see, uh, this is that search component which I was talking about, right? Let me open one more, which I'm hoping should work, but let's see. So basically, I right click and I say preview component locally. So this comes out of the box, but I have to install one plugin. I'll tell you the steps basically. So here, search.
we are able to see this beta screen. That's
Yeah,
what.
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, let me just change. Somehow this server is not working. Let me see if I can restart. Let me close VS Code. Let's see if any of the component. When events are not working, although component is visible. Okay, preview components locally. Okay, it started the local server. So I'll share a link with you guys where it clearly defines how we can uh, set up this local development server. It's like a local host. Normally with Visual Studio, with .NET and Java projects, right? We have a local host set up using IIS and all those things, right? Web dev to do the testing. So it's something similar wherein you'll have a local host to preview what we have developed.
So this is like a set server or a normal server you want?
Normal server, nothing we are doing as such. It's more like we
Oh,
have connected to the org, like we authorized, right? So we have authorized which org the data will come from, but we install a plugin. So if I go here, what are the plugins that are installed? Oh, one second. Might as well look at that link. 1 second. I'm sharing my screen. So this is one blog which is quite self-explanatory. It's again a Salesforce developer blog wherein they ask us to install a plugin called LWC Dev Server. Okay. Once we have installed it, we have to run this command LWC start. So these are CLI commands like SFDX commands. which means, I mean, in our CLI terminal, I just have to execute this. Okay, so once we have done these two, I mean, we have installed and we have started the server. All the components available, all the web components available, you can see here, and you can uh, test it out. I mean, before deploying it, you can test if everything is so here, mostly for debugging and all those things, you can see. So this is a good blog I found, and I felt it's important, while working with LWC, it's important that this server, I mean, this local development server should be set up, because it gives me more debugging information. I mean, rather than, so if I use it in directly in the development environment, I don't see some certain errors which I see while in the local host. So I mean, help you analyze better before deploying it. Okay, so I think that time, why the data was not coming was, I needed to restart the server. It was old instance. So now if I just do a search, it shows me the records, right? So if there are errors or anything, it will throw me an error there. I mean, and even if you set up your debug logs in Salesforce, that will also be generated when you run this localhost. So somewhere there is a server, I mean, it's hitting Salesforce server, but we haven't yet deployed it to Salesforce. Got it?
Yeah.
So as I said, and where we run these commands, I will just show that in Visual Studio. See, this is a marketplace where I can search. Okay, local, I'm not sure if it's there. Local dev server. Not sure, but to run the command in the palette, here we have this terminal. In terminal, what you can do is you can just execute whatever we have, no, like sfdx plugin, and enter. So once you do that, it will enter the it will install the dev server for you. That's it. Nothing else we have to do. Got it? So once you have installed CLI, it will automatically work. Salesforce CLI. So
Okay.
this sfds command is nothing but Salesforce CLI command. So once you have installed CLI, you can run these commands to install uh, these plugins. Okay, so yeah, so these were some major areas which I wanted to cover as part of LWC. Again, I want you guys to do practice on LWC. Think of different use cases. So if I have to tell my way of learning LWC, right? Uh, I was always thinking, how can I map? Let's say I was don't think Aura components. Why Aura components or why LWC? Just think that, okay, I want to learn LWC, so let me replicate what I was doing in Aura components. Let's say I was building a table component, and I was communicating with the parent. How I will do it in LWC? I used to use events, application events, component events in Aura components. How I will do it in LWC? I was using Lightning data services in Aura components. How it would be in web components. So think in those lines, and build. I mean, and start building certain LWC components. So that way you will be you'll get used to their tags as well. I mean, their syntaxes. It's more of syntaxes, right? Because otherwise the process is still the same. I mean, you build a page, you have certain events, you call child components. So same thing happens. Just the way we call, the way we access changes. So That way our crux remains the same, our core remains the same, just that a different way of accessing, right? So look at those areas, and I think that way we can learn things in a faster way.
Yeah.
Okay, so more or less these were the areas I wanted to cover in Aura and LWC. uh, and I can't think of anything else in LWC that's important. As I said, this dev guide is something that we should look for. Okay, develop in our component library. So please go through that whenever you have any doubt. We have developer.salesforce.com there. You can post your questions there. So all those things we can do. But this is my one-stop shop to understand what tags I have, what concepts I need to learn. So all those things we can do. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's take a 5 minute break, and we'll come back, and we'll talk about some deployment processes, maybe changes I'll go through in a sequence. And in tomorrow's sessions again we will continue on the deployment process. Okay, other deployment processes.
Okay.
uh, so let's take a 5 minute break.
Sure. Yeah.